holy diver. You went out too long in the midnight sea. Oh, what's becoming of me? Ride the tiger. You can see his strength, but you know he's clean. Oh, don't you see what I mean? Gotta get away. Get away. Into the velvet line. We'll probably cut all of that.
Welcome to Vic and Hope.
You didn't crack your can. The audience is waiting on bated breath to watch you crack a can.
Listen, Victor.
And they gotta watch me crack a can?
I can't just give them the same thing. I can't just give them what they want every time or it loses that luster. It's not special. You know? It's like how PewDiePie withholds the bro fist.
But Curtis Connor has to do the same thing every time.
Oh, you're right. Shit. I don't know where our marketing stands. Alright, I'm sorry, guys. Here you go.
Give them what they want. Do it.
I'm giving it.
Do it. Chill. Chill for them. Open the can. Ah, yes.
Hey, welcome back. So, today we're coming to you with a little bit of a different topic than usual. Today we're going to discuss some spooky movies.
Spooky movies, spooky movie night. That's right. Halloween. It's not over.
It's
October.
never over.
You can never contain Halloween to just October. It always spills over into November because you never end up doing enough.
I mean, it spills over into my entire life.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's basically the rest of the year for us is Halloween. So, we watched some spooky movies, had a couple movie nights, you know? And new things are coming out. Whoa!
Wow.
New
media?
movies.
Holy
And
shit.
it's actually, there are a couple movies that were worth talking about. Like, sometimes there's plenty of things we watch that aren't worth talking about.
Oh,
and we don't discuss them. But
Sure.
a couple horror movies that were definitely worth talking about. What were they?
So today we're gonna do a good old side by side. We're talking about Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor Uncut and Remy Weeks's His House, found on Netflix.
House.
So I figured we'll kick it off by talking about progeny of horror, the horror genre's darling, David Cronenberg, Brandon Cronenberg. This is his second feature film, Possessor Uncut, aka Possessor.
Sometimes that small thought, all it takes to lose control.
The first thing you need to know about this movie is that the way it was released is kind of fucking stupid. Because it's VOD, obviously.
Video on demand.
Victor, everyone who watches our videos is an internet person and probably younger than us. I think they know what VOD is.
Means, bro.
Really?
Everything's streaming now. Nobody watches shit on demand.
VOD is when you have to pay to watch the movie.
I know, and no one does that, so they're not going to know.
I do. I paid to watch this movie. So, alright.
Because we're tools and we don't just buy things or get things.
Sorry that I try to support art.
Damn.
Oh, my bad.
Are you telling me that the only way that art can be made is if it's profitable?
Damn.
At least on a high enough level for anyone to give a shit about it and for it to be interesting in any way. I digress. Anyways, so what did you think about Possessor?
So, again, I want to get into how this movie was released because it's kind of retarded. So, there's Possessor and there's Possessor Uncut.
Yes.
And the reason this happened is it seems like they had to chop out little portions of the film for it to get an R rating rather than an unrated rating. So, you can get Possessor Uncut on every streaming service except Amazon Prime. And Amazon Prime only has the R-rated version.
The circumcised version.
The circumcised version.
And I'll tell you, I want to tell you right off the bat, there's the cut version, it's quite literally the circumcised version. Because the only reason there's an uncut version is because there are several cocks.
Erect
and like
cocks.
they are erect
Let's be
cocks.
real.
Yeah, like these are like
Flaccid peens?
Yeah.
These are not.
full on like pornographic peens. This isn't your HBO flaccid little
This isn't a Game of
fucking
Thrones peen.
nasty little old man
This
dick
is-
dangling around. Like these are cocks.
These
These are hard cocks.
These are some intense peens.
If you're looking for some dick in your horror, fucking watch some Possessor, dude.
Certainly. So
Yeah, immediately I want to get into like one of these movies we like more than the other.
yeah.
And it's his house. I'll tell you
It
that
is his
now.
house.
So I want you to stick around
Please
through
stick
the
around
Possessor.
and
If you're
listen.
not interested in
Cut
Possessor,
ahead
like skip. Yeah,
to
because
his house.
I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna shit on Possessor a little bit. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert for our feelings.
I really love his house. So like I don't want you guys to tune out before we get to that
Well,
because that's
this
a
is-
movie that I really
Now
like.
there's no incentive for you
So,
to
like,
watch this video
no.
because Victor's already
You should
told
watch
you how
you should
he
watch the
feels.
whole thing.
So,
You should watch the whole thing. I just don't want
Bye.
people to tune out before we get to the movie that I actually care about. But anyways, Possessor will be plenty fun to talk about, so stick around.
So to clarify, we did watch the uncut version of
Yeah,
Possessor
we
on
paid
YouTube. I paid
$6.
the $6 for it. I was a good girl, a good pay piggy. I gave Brandon my money. You're welcome, Brandon. So yeah, the basic plot of Possessor, it's a sci-fi-esque film where a agency basically offers this service where a trained assassin, like Ghost in the Shell, body dives into
Yeah.
a person so that they can assassinate a person of their choosing. You know, whoever's paid for this job can assassinate this person, and then it's clean because the person whose body they use to assassinate the other person then has to kill themselves
Yeah.
by the person inhabiting their body killing them.
And the conceit is that they try to like set it up so there's like a logical story
Yeah.
behind why they would do that. Where like
There's a
it's supposed to
narrative
make
as to
sense.
why this murder suicide took place.
Yeah, so that no one questions that it was real, you know?
Right.
Which is a fine premise, and I would say the strongest point of this movie is its premise,
Is the idea that it
and
has.
it's basically just a Black Mirror episode, like premise-wise. Like this should have been a Black Mirror episode. That's kind of the appeal, I guess.
I guess.
I feel like people who
It's-
like
yeah,
Black Mirror concepts will like this.
cerebral horror.
Yeah, and like so you had seen it through like YMS talked about it and
YMS
Red
talked
Letter
about it
Media.
a couple months ago. This movie has been on my radar for a while, back when it was in film festivals, and I was really
Yeah.
curious because I like David Cronenberg. I'm not a fan of all of his movies, but I do really like The Fly. And I do appreciate a lot of his body horror pioneering, and I understand why he has the place in horror canon that he has.
Yeah.
So I was curious what his son could bring to the table that would earn him a reputation, you know, on par with his dad.
Yeah. And so it's like I was pretty interested going into this. Some good recommendations saying that it was
Jay from Red Letter
saying that it
Media
was
liked
solid.
it.
Yeah, it seemed neat. We watched the trailer before we bought it on YouTube,
Mhm.
and they made it out like a thriller. It's not
Yeah.
like a Inception style like oh shit.
Horror thriller.
Yeah, it seemed very exciting from the trailer. So I was like, okay, so this is going to be like a horror thriller kind of thing. And I would say it's not that. The trailer is absolutely misleading.
In that sense.
Stylistically and tonally, I would compare it most to like a David Lynch movie or like a Stanley Kubrick sort
Yeah.
of like 70s sort of horror, very heady, like slow burn kind of horror film.
Yeah.
But this one, all right, I'm gonna get into negative because I don't like this movie, and I just gotta say off the bat that I kind of hate this movie, and so it's like I'm gonna be coming at it from the perspective of like why I dislike it so much, because I think this is a movie that a lot of people are gonna love.
I think you'll
if
love it or
you're-
hate it.
Like if you're into this style, you're gonna go, man, that's a great movie. I love
If you're
it.
a Lynchian kind of person, then
Yeah.
you will probably like this movie.
And like if you're into like if you're most interested in a cool sci-fi concept, you're gonna love this because it's cool. Like I don't like Black Mirror and
Yeah,
stuff
we
like
don't
that.
particularly care for Black Mirror,
Yeah,
and we're not tremendous fans of David Lynch.
yeah.
So
And this does a lot of things that I really don't like, especially in the cinematography department.
this
And that's
is
where it turned me off very quickly.
definitely a movie where the cinematography detracts from
Yeah.
paying attention to the story.
Because again, it's a stylistic thing that a lot of people will appreciate and like.
Sure.
But like, they go for it's kind of a future like utopian kind of society. They don't really go into the society
It's
much,
just
but like
a bit of a more technologically advanced.
you can tell
modern
from
society.
the set design, which is good. I don't like it aesthetically. They did a good job, and it clearly has a good budget behind it because they create these sets where like the woman lives in this neighborhood that has like these, you know, like certain types of housing that just look like futuristic, like box houses.
Yeah,
you know?
like your cookie cutter houses in a suburban neighborhood.
Yeah, it has lots of those like single color panel walls and stuff like that, and like when she's possessed this guy's body and she goes to his work and he works in like, this is the dumbest, like this really pissed me off because it's so fucking dumb and lame, but like, so that, alright, the plot of the movie, this woman is an assassin who goes into people's heads, and like they do this thing where like they abduct the person and put them to sleep and put this plant in their head, and then she goes into their mind through the implant.
Yes, they put like a neural network into the victim's head, and then she can then Sword Art Online dive into their neural implant.
Yeah, and so she lays in a chair, and the wide mouth lady,
no one's her boss. Her boss who chooses these missions for her.
Yeah, it's this actress that I don't like with a really wide mouth, and I call her wide mouth lady. I just have found her annoying in every role that she's played that I've seen her in, which I can't even remember with the other movies where I just know that I don't like her.
Annihilation as well.
Yeah,
but you didn't see Annihilation, so that means nothing.
I don't know. She does a good job in this movie.
She's a good actor.
Yeah, she's a good actress.
The acting in this movie is like totally competent.
I would say that carries it largely. Like if the acting in this movie weren't so good at times, then people wouldn't like it at all because it has strong performances, which also plays into the cinematography and my criticisms of it that I'm going to get into. Like the overall plot, you get a cold open of her like doing an assassination of someone else. You're given the hint of her like she gets like these questionnaires to see how detached from the person she was taking over.
To make sure her psyche is still intact and divorced from that person's.
So she goes home and like you see that she hates her fucking life. She has very bad sex with her husband, and she has a son that she doesn't want to deal with.
She's estranged from her husband. She's estranged from her son. Like you can tell that even though she passes that psyche test, that she is very distant. She's like rehearsing how to interact with her family because she is clearly like losing empathy and losing touch with like her emotions and herself. And
it's kind of a good allegory for like being an actor, because that's kind of the struggle that like method actors go through, which is that they spend so much time in these characters and living as those characters that they don't know who they are when they go home. And so it's clear that her physical body is a character that she has developed, and she doesn't relate to it anymore. She is like this distant thing in the back of her mind. And so when she goes home to her family, she's rehearsing what she's going to say to her family the same way she would rehearse if she were going to go assassinate
It's the same way she rehearses when she's watching her next victim and she's copying his mannerisms and copying the way he speaks. It's the same way she plays out her personality in her life.
And so even when she's coming out of another person and going back to being her and she's getting all these items and stuff, she's rehearsing the character that she is. And she's still putting on a performance, even though that performance is supposed to be who she is, you know?
Yeah.
But to her, I don't think that's
not who she is anymore.
She wants to get the fuck out of there. She has sex with her husband and she's like, I have nothing here, you know? She is no one. Yeah. And that stuff is really good. I like those aspects of the character.
Yeah, I think that's a good portrayal of a character in that situation.
Yeah, it's performed very well. The second scene, when she gets out of being in the first body and she's killed and then she's doing the questionnaire with the other lady, is the start of where I hate the way this movie looks. Because they're in this gray room, and it's supposed to look like futuristic, like, interrogation room kind of thing.
Like
and
very high-tech.
It's the most boring room you could possibly imagine.
They're in a black void.
Yeah. They're not in a black void, they're in a gray room. There's a difference between a black void and a gray room.
That room's pretty dark.
I mean, yeah, it's got that black void, but I hate that. I don't care, like, if it makes sense with the story. I hate the look. I just hate it. I hate interrogation room scenes. I hate interrogation room dialogue driven, like, it just is so boring. It's so uninteresting and so visually dry. And it's like, I can see where it's visually dry to fit the point of the scene, but also I hate it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make it less boring that it's thematically appropriate. You
It's
know?
definitely supposed to be like clinical and detached, which it succeeds in doing.
And
but
then it's like,
you know.
but then it leans way too heavily on like, okay, there's nothing interesting on the screen, so we have to do lower thirds off-centered back and forth camera angles.
Yeah.
And then we're just getting so many of those shots throughout the entire movie. And
It
it's
does
just
rely on those shots quite a bit, and I think it knows that those scenes are kind of boring, and so the cinematography becomes a character in those scenes.
And the framing isn't helping anything. It's not saying anything.
Right.
It's not making you feel anything. It's just annoying.
Giving you something to go, oh, that's neat.
Yeah, and it's like the highlight of the scenes are the performances, where like those actors are carrying those scenes because they have subtle facial expressions. They like their voices are so good, they sound really natural, and their performance is excellent. And so it's like, I would rather you just give me a boring shot of the face dead on than give me this off-center boring shot.
Because
where,
then
like,
you're not paying attention fully to the performance, and instead you're distracted by the camera.
Yeah, you're taking away from the performance instead of enhancing it. And the performance is all there is in the scene. There's nothing to look at besides the face. So why are you showing me the rest of a frame where there is nothing, you know?
Yeah.
It's not helping artistically. It's just taking away. You could have made this a 4x3 movie and just had the actor's face centered, and it would have been way more powerful. It made more sense. It looked better aesthetically. Like, the aesthetics just don't make sense, and they annoy me deeply. Because if you guys don't know, I'm a film boy, and I like, you know, I'm a cinematographer, quote unquote. I suck, and I do little shit. But I get bothered, and like, cinematography is meant to be not noticeable. You're not supposed to think about it, you know? Like, that's invisible editing is the old style. You're supposed to it's good when you don't notice it, and it just puts you in the world. If you're ever distracted in noticing the cinematography beyond like really appreciating
beyond like getting technical,
even that is a distraction that's kind of unnecessary if it's not fitting the story. If the cinematography is beautiful and there's nothing, it's not complementing a story, then it is distracting and it's not good. No matter how beautiful it is, if it's not contributing to the story and enhancing the narrative, it is not good cinematography, and you can fuck right off. That's my take. Because then it's cinematography for cinematography's sake and not for the sake of the plot. And everything should be for the service of the story and the plot, you know?
And I'll give this movie the benefit of a doubt, even though I don't personally enjoy or feel like it was necessary to do what they did with the cinematography, but you could say thematically that it is appropriate because it's displaying how off-kilter the character feels.
I mean, you could say that.
So you could make that argument if you really wanted to. You can't completely, like,
it's just, to me,
the cinematography.
It's the laziest version of that.
But it's an obvious thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I enjoyed it or I feel like it was the right choice, but I could understand why it was a choice that was made.
Yeah. I just don't like it. Just really don't like it.
That's why we have opinions.
On the other hand, like, there are scenes in this that I really do love on a cinematic level, which is like there's scenes where she's like losing touch or control of the host she's in, and when she first mind melds with him, fucking amazing.
Looks really cool.
Like, really, really cool scene where like they have like these wax bodies and they're melting in reverse and dripping upwards and stuff, and it's like really awesome stuff. Would be great in like a Tool music video. I
mean, that's a really cool way to express that really abstract concept of like consciousness, multiple consciousnesses occupying the same body and like fighting for control and mixing up, you know, who's really who.
And it's just like beautiful and awesome and perfectly edited. And that like, that's where it feels very David Lynch, is in those scenes that are just like beautiful insanity. But like those are just few and far between and not really worth the rest of the movie to me, which was mediocre and boring, and I didn't really care. And it's mostly stretching out a very thin premise and not really going anywhere by the end, or really saying anything interesting with it beyond like the obvious shit that you would do with that premise. So. Right.
Now, I'm a horror boy, but would you say that you are a horror fan as in a fan of the genre?
I mean, I am a fan of what horror could be.
You like the concept, the notion.
I love horror, you know, but I'm not a fan of just every horror movie.
I mean,
you know?
neither am I. But
It's like when it's executed the best. Like it's my favorite thing when it's done really well.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Because
just not always done very well.
I feel like, to break it down really simply, there's 3 really good subsets of horror.
Yeah.
And that's like the dark comedy, like Reanimator, which is not meant to be scary, not really meant to say anything, but it's really entertaining. It has fun characters. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Then there's like your aesthetic horror. So like your Dario Argento Suspiria, your Hausu, stuff like that. And then there's like horror with a message.
Yeah.
So like your It Comes at Night, Hereditary, you know, those kind of like, there's something that's trying to be said through the lens of horror.
Yes.
This movie, I think, tries to be that third category.
Yeah.
But there's not really much to say.
Yeah.
So it spends 1 hour and 40 minutes kind of just circling around, acting like there's some sort of big concept that it's trying to express to you about like identity and like maintaining your sense of self. But there's really just not much there to say.
I just realized I've got the audio fucked up.
Oh, fuck.
God damn it.
Uh-oh.
I need to switch it. It'll fix. But yeah, it's gonna sound bad.
Oh, fuck.
Because I had it set a certain way for content.
Damn it, content.
God damn it. That's so bad. That's not good.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Guys, I'm deeply sorry for how terrible the audio has been up to this point. I had it set to a different setting because we were doing a content the other day. And this mic was not recording. It was recording to the camera's mic, which probably hears the AC more than it hears our voices. Hopefully it's fine, but welcome back to Vic and Hope, the better audio version. Fuck. Anyways, where were we?
We were talking about how this is a movie that tries to thinks it has a lot to say but doesn't really have anything to say.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a simple concept, and then it towards the end, I feel like it gets a little mixed with what it's trying to say.
Yeah.
Because like over the course of the movie, you know, she takes over this guy's body. She's supposed to kill his girlfriend's dad
because he's the owner of some like mega corporation, and then the assassin corporation can shadow control that corporation by blackmailing the guy who had them assassinate the CEO.
Yes.
That's the grand scheme.
It's goofy and sci-fi ridiculousness, and this is like a movie that should be fun, you know,
Yeah.
and it's just not. It's
Yeah.
just very boring. So she takes over that guy and is living through his life and is trying to set up where like she's acting super weird because it's supposed to be like his narratives that he's acting weird and off, and then he's, you know, raises all these red flags, and then he kills the girlfriend's dad, and that is what happens. That happens, and
He does do that. She the assassin has this like fixation with stabbing. Like they give her alternative ways to kill her targets, like pistols and less violent methods, but she continuously like fantasizes and chooses like the more visceral methods, like stabbing someone or bludgeoning them or
like,
things like that.
This is where I get to a point where I think the movie is actually like mixing up its own point in a very dumb way, because there's a first suggestion with her first kill. She does it by stabbing the eye a bunch of times, and they were like, why did you do that? It doesn't make any sense. And she was like, I just felt like it was more in character.
Yeah.
And that was her excuse, even though, so she goes home and she's fantasizing about stabbing her husband while she's fucking him or whatever. And
Well,
then she
she's
fights
just
him.
laying there getting fucked.
And so it seems like this is her sort of fetishy thing, is that she wants to have this power and control and stab people. And she's like this sociopath going into these bodies to murder, to get herself off, basically. And like that seems like the obvious direction it's going in. There's some stuff towards the end where she does the murders and stuff. And then she's been like kind of losing control of the guy, I think it's suggested.
Yes.
And then the guy ends up taking glass and shoving it in the back of his head to like damage
Get
the
the
implant.
neural network. Yeah.
So he damages the implant, and then he's kind of in control, and it's going between his and her control in these trippy scenes, and he's like, oh, what's going on? And I just, everything from here on I felt was really dumb.
Yeah, the ending is pretty weak in my opinion.
I was just really out of it because it just didn't go in an interesting direction.
Yeah. So the big twist at the end is that as she's fighting for control of this guy's body, he's in control. He goes to her house where her husband and her son live, and he confronts the husband. And the husband gives this speech about, like, the brain parasite.
He gave that speech.
He gave that
the
speech.
husband. So this is where he gives a speech while he has the husband on the table and he's got a gun at his head. And he gives a whole speech about how the cat brain parasites, which is the concept of this fucking movie, which is why it's so dumb. Because he brings up the brain parasites because there's these brain parasites that live in cats and control the cat.
No,
and, they live in mice.
They come through cat feces, and then mice end up ingesting it, and it makes the mice act in irrational ways to where the mouse will, like, become more brave, and it will go out in front of the cat and, like, fuck around, so the cat will eat it, and the parasite can continue to have its ideal host.
Yeah, so it can get back into the cat. And then supposedly that those parasites have also gotten into humans, and we don't really know the full extent of what
it can make. Yeah, but everyone who's ever been on the internet knows.
But, like, it's such a common thing, and it's like, it was inevitable that they would make a movie about this because it is kind of spooky and interesting, but it's not that spooky. Like, it's not that deep. You know,
it's not an hour and 40 minutes worth.
And so,
spooky and interesting.
The suggestion behind that, when he's giving this speech to the husband, is like the concept there is that, and what they start alluding to, because she also comes out and kind of suggests this, is that he was always in control. She's just making suggestions. That's what the parasite does, you know? Like, that's the implication from the dialogue. At least what I felt is that they're trying to say that, like, this parasite in you, you are in control, but you're not in control. Like, you feel like you're in control,
but
something is making suggestions and controlling you. And that's where it gets into this weird territory, because throughout the movie, it's portrayed as though she is in 100% conscious control of him, and we don't really get any frame of reference for what his consciousness is experiencing. And we don't even get that clearly after he gets his body back, you know?
Yeah.
It's not clearly suggested that he was, like, lucid the entire time watching this.
Yeah, you get the feeling that, like,
control.
The personality that's being controlled is dormant.
Yeah. And so it's like, I guess it's interesting if the level of mind melding is that, like, he still feels like his consciousness is in control because he doesn't know that someone else is in there, and he thinks that he is doing all of these things logically within his own mind, but they don't go enough into suggesting that for me to really care and feel like that's what they were trying to say, you know?
But on the same note, he at least is aware enough that he knows where the neural network is and that he can, like, make an effort to destroy it, whereas he was under anesthesia when it was implanted, and I'm assuming they would have brought him to the facility where the procedure was done in a state that he wouldn't be conscious. So how would he know it's there if he doesn't have some level of consciousness? Because every day the assassin has to, like, tune her ability to, like, manipulate the neural network, which whatever. She pulls out this little dial and she sits in front of the mirror and laughs and cries and expresses a full range of emotions to, I guess, like, tune her sensitivity to the person she's occupying. I don't know.
I guess maybe the twist was supposed to be that they were trying to portray it like she was just piloting a robot, you know? Like her brain was just in this host body, and the host body had no consciousness or control. And then the suggestion is, he was conscious the whole time.
I just don't feel like that's really a reveal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not that interesting. I feel like it's kind of a given
in a story like this.
And then, in the final scene, like, she's trying to, she, I guess, wrestles back control and kills her own son.
Well, no, because the son shoots her.
Yeah, but then she shoots the son through the head.
Him. Yeah.
And it shows her body over his when she shoots him. So it's like she wanted to kill her own son. I think
definitely.
Is a suggestion
That's not surprising.
But yeah, it's just kind of.
But the reveal is that Widemouth was possessing her son through the neural network, which was pretty funny.
Dumb. I don't like it.
I guess that's, like, her failsafe in case she fucked up.
It was just, like, the whole confrontation with going to her house and all. It was just like, who?
Yeah.
I was this is the least interesting direction this could have gone in, you know?
I agree.
And then it's, I don't know.
Especially because there's so many ideas in this movie, like, especially when the assassin is occupying, I think the guy's name is Colin, they're occupying his body, and she's finding herself really attracted to his girlfriend. And there's a scene where she's fucking him, and it's like, she's in this male body, but then there's an instant where, like, she is female, but she has his dick. And
Yeah,
you're like,
that was
"Oh,
awesome."
that's cool. I can appreciate that because it's you
Yeah.
know an exploration of this character's psyche and of wanting to like exert power and like
Yeah.
feel something.
And it went
and it
into
links
like
in
this,
with the stabbing too, the
yeah.
aggression.
and this like kind of gets into some trans identity stuff
Yeah.
that was really interesting, where it was like she prefers to be in this male body, but then they don't go anywhere with that.
It
at
doesn't
all,
mean anything
you know?
in the end, which is disappointing.
Yeah, and that's part of where it feels like she's piloting him, you know,
Yeah.
where it's like, I don't know.
It's very mixed in what I think it's trying to say.
And then in the end, it's just like, well, I didn't feel like I really cared, and it didn't go anywhere interesting. It kind of went exactly where you knew it was going to go.
Yeah.
And it was mostly, like, it could have been half the runtime. It'd been fine.
Definitely.
It's lots of slow, drawn-out scenes that are just, like, in another movie, it could be really good. Like, I don't hate the slow, drawn-out style. I like that style.
That
It's
can
just,
be very effective.
yeah, it's just, this isn't an effective execution of it. It just feels like slow for the sake of slow.
Yeah.
And kind of a pretentious take on these ideas. Same thing with the cinematography, where it's like, yeah, those kind of angles can be really good in a good movie, but this
when there's
isn't
a
that
purpose
movie,
to it.
you know?
Yeah. I feel like this movie is a little bit irritating just because no one would be making a big deal about this movie if it wasn't David Cronenberg's son.
Yeah, it would completely fly under the radar. And then it's also like, I don't know, it just does so many like things that I feel like are the obvious pretentious movie thing to do, you know?
And like I've heard people talk about this movie being like hyper violent, almost to the point of too violent, but I didn't feel that way at all. I don't feel like there was really, aside from the erect dicks, there was
Yeah.
nothing in this movie that would have made me think it was harder than like a light R.
I mean, I would say it has that gruesome depiction of the violence in it where it feels kind of realistic, you know, at moments.
I don't know, maybe I'm desensitized because
Yeah.
I really wasn't
Well,
bothered by any of the violence in this
For
movie.
me, it had that sort of like irking Game of Thrones sort of like gore where it's just like, I don't know, it felt kind of ruthless with the stabbing and stuff. So
I guess
yeah.
she did like take that poker to that guy's eye, and that
And
was
it
not
has
really
like
necessary.
where there's a lot of like headshots where it's a person on the ground getting shot in the back of the head, and like it feels that just like savage sort of like dead, you know?
I guess.
Like that probably fucks with a lot of people, you know, especially when like the girlfriend's crawling on the ground over the glass and everything, and then she just like fucking ends her, you know.
I guess I must just be a psychopath because I'm just like, eh.
I mean, it's not that, you know.
I just feel
it's
like
not-
it
it's
doesn't.
nothing new,
It's not
but,
like,
like-
unrated, uncut.
Yeah,
like to
it's
me,
not
that's
that.
like you're
I imagine
talking
comical gore.
You're
with
talking
that.
like human centipedes, sallow, like fucked shit. When you're telling me it's unrated.
Yeah, it's just not like absolutely insane. It's just, you know, it's just kind of gruesome.
To hype
like-
your movie up as unrated when it's a Cronenberg movie and I know what I'm getting into,
Yeah.
and then for it to be that, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah,
all
when I
right.
heard it, like Cronenberg's son unrated, I'm like, body horror, like monsters? No,
Yeah,
not
like
at all.
Some fucked up
I mean,
shit.
my expectation lowered when we watched the trailer, and I went, okay,
Yeah.
this is like a thriller kind of thing. But then it wasn't a thriller; it was boring.
Yeah.
So it didn't really feel like a horror movie. It felt
doesn't
more
even
like a
have-
sci-fi thriller.
It doesn't even have really what I would classify as body horror.
Yeah,
Like-
I wouldn't really call it a horror movie at all.
Yeah, I
You
wouldn't
know?
either.
It's more of like a
It is
psychological
more of
thriller.
a psychological thriller for sure.
Yeah. Which I don't really care for. That's not my genre.
Yeah,
But,
it's fine.
Yeah.
It's not a bad movie, but it's not. It definitely doesn't
Yeah.
deserve the hype it's been getting, in my opinion.
I definitely think there's some people like who you could probably listen to this and go, oh, that actually sounds like something I would like.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't fault you for liking it at all. It's just like completely not my cup of tea.
I
at
mean,
all.
tons of people like Black Mirror, and
Yeah,
this is
and
like
David Lynch.
a more extreme Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're
So-
into that, you're probably gonna love this.
Yeah, like this and Jabberwocky have the same vibes, in my opinion.
Jabberwock. All right. Anywho, moving on. I'm gonna pee.
Heyo, Vic's gonna go pee. Are we live?
Back from intermission. I hope you all had a pee. Maybe got a snack because I think we're in it for the long haul
We're
with
gonna
this
be
video.
going for a moment.
Hopefully you made
I
it
didn't
through.
intend for this to be quite so long.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah, we thought it
halfway
would be kind of
through.
short, but yep.
All right. Well, let's get into the latter half of our double feature. We're going to be talking about the Netflix original film, His House.
Congratulations. You're being released as asylum seekers, not as citizens, not yet. You'll be sent to a home of our choosing, You must not move from this address.
We are good people.
Whether or not you're good people, it's not me that needs convincing.
To kick
His
this
house.
off, I would like to read an IMDb user review. This is left by Menendez, and he gives it a 2 stars out of 10. Watch Who Halloween instead. At least the plotline in that film is interesting. So many tangents in this movie got me so confused. And why, after killing the weird demon witch, did the ghosts appear normal? 13 out of 39 people found this review helpful. So, Victor, how did you feel about His House?
Masterpiece. 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Fantastic. Which I think you'll see, like, the critics' reviews of this movie are all, like, fantastic.
This is
and the audience
has a
reviews are
100%
shit.
on Rotten Tomatoes from the critical standpoint.
Which I didn't know until after we watched the movie, of course. I knew nothing about
Because
this
I never tell you
whatsoever going
anything
into
about
it.
the movies that
Yeah,
I tell you.
I had
that
no
we're gonna
idea what to
watch.
expect. No idea. And then we watched the trailer on Netflix, and I was like, that actually looks kind of good.
Yeah.
Like low key, looks kind of good.
Loki looks kind of good though.
And it
So,
was really fucking good. I love this movie.
Yeah.
And I can gush about it for a bit. So let's get into the plot.
This film is the directorial debut of Remy Weeks.
Good
He's
fucking job.
A guy who's directed a couple shorts, some music videos. But damn, he came out swinging with this one.
Yeah.
This movie is a fucking triumph, my dude.
It's a banger.
So, what is this movie about, Victor?
Will you talk about what it's about? Because I'm gonna go on about cinematography and shit. So like, you
So,
give us a plot synopsis.
His House is the story of 2 Sudanese refugees who come to the UK after presumably their village in Sudan was attacked by terrorists of some sort. I'm not highly educated in...
Well, it's like militia groups in Africa.
I can't speak in specifics on what goes on in Sudan. I'm not educated entirely in that, but I realize it's a bit of a... There's a lot of shit going on
It was
Sudan.
Coney 2016.
Coney's 2016. So,
Or was it 2012? Coney 2012.
Coney 2012.
2012? Whatever,
it doesn't matter. Coney's not relevant to this plot.
Yes.
So we have our 2 main characters, husband and wife, named Rial and Bull. And so we start with, there's like quick cuts of their journey from leaving Sudan, escaping Sudan and being brought to the UK. They're being held in a detention center. And then finally it's decided, all right, well, we are going to temporarily test and see how you do living here in the UK. And then depending on how things go, we might allow you to be refugees and live here permanently.
Yeah.
And of course, they impose all of these rules where you have to prove that you can blend into society. You have to live in this house. You can't get a job. You have to live on this tiny pension that we're giving you weekly. And they just impose all these really horrible rules on them.
Yeah.
And it's just the story of these 2 trying to cope with their new environment, cope with the feelings that they're feeling about how they got here and how they're adjusting and what their future is going to be in this completely foreign country. And dealing with the consequences of some actions that they have taken.
And there's some ghosts in that house.
There's some ghosts in
Quote
that
unquote,
house.
there's some ghosts in that house. So based on that, in our recommendation, I want you to go watch it if you're interested.
Please, it's on Netflix.
Because we're going to get into spoilers.
It's an hour and a half.
Like, I don't think knowing the spoilers will ruin the movie or anything, because it's pretty clear where it's going to go. Yeah. Even though the ending, it surprised me in a pleasant way, just because so many movies aren't willing to go where this movie goes.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good. But I'm going to get into some spoilers right off the bat, because this movie is kind of mind-blowing in a way that, so it's like a PG-13 movie.
It's TV-14.
So, big spoilers here. No one dies. No one dies.
Wow.
In this horror film about ghosts in a house. No one dies. That is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
Because this is a scary movie. It's very fucking spooky. It delivers on all of the spooks that any fucking haunted house movie would do, except for no one dies.
Yeah.
And none of the characters are shit.
It's amazing because obviously in 2020, we have a tremendous glut of haunted house movies that all feel boilerplate, cookie cutter, exactly the same fucking cast of characters, the same things happen, it always ends the same way.
Yeah.
So for this movie to come out and have such likable main characters who you immediately can empathize with so strongly, and the horror and the scares that this movie utilizes are on fucking point, dude.
Yeah.
This movie legitimately, like, I have not felt like anxiety and like scared during a film in so long, and this film like did that for me.
And it does a great job through everything it has at its disposal, like fantastic cinematography all the way through, which I'll get into.
Yeah.
Great thematic value, great characters that you care about immediately, so you don't want them to get hurt.
Yeah,
you know?
you're not like, ha, I don't give a shit.
You actually care about them, which is rare.
So unusual
And
for a
it's
movie like this.
Something that, like, I'm loving this current generation of horror movies, particularly ones that focus on minority groups.
Yeah.
Because you just get more unique perspectives.
Absolutely.
Like, this is an incredibly unique perspective for a horror film. We have not seen this.
Yeah, it's so
about
different.
refugees. And it's a haunted house movie about refugees. Like, that's new. I haven't seen that. They're always about a mansion in the woods full of white people who are assholes. They're always fucking assholes.
Always
You
dicks.
don't care. You're just waiting for them to
They're
die.
always
You're just
loaded.
waiting for a ghost. You don't care about the characters at all in these fucking movies. And I'm so sick of that. I just tune out immediately when it's just these fucking cookie cutter, tropey characters in all these fucking horror movies where you have to just kind of ignore all the negatives in tropey shit that modern horror movies get into all the time. And this one just gets so far away from that just by simply having a different cast with something to say, you know?
Yeah. And this movie is even really interesting in, like, of course, the characters are different, their situation is different, they're portrayed in a way that makes them extremely likable. But in comparison to how a standard white person haunted house story goes, these characters willingly interact with the spirits that are haunting them, with the witch, with the
Just super
the
interesting.
ghosts. They're willingly speaking with them and like having a conversation, which is so unusual. Usually in a horror movie, it's the white people are avoiding the ghosts in every possible capacity.
Yes.
But in this movie, it's like they will go out of their way to have like dialogue with the ghosts.
And it's because, first of all, the very, very strong thematic elements of this movie, and it comes together in a tight bow because it's all a metaphor, which is the strongest way to have a horror film is thematic value, have the monster be a metaphorical representation of something that's wrong with society, which is why, like, making a movie about this group of people can be so strong because they have something to be afraid of, you know? Like, they are people who are fleeing something terrifying and trauma. They're running from that into a place that is just as terrifying as where they came from in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's what this movie is about. It's about the experience of being in this foreign country and trying to integrate, you know, while also having all of this trauma surrounding your entire situation and being in a situation that is shit, you know?
Yeah, it's so high stress and so foreign, and there's so much uncertainty that it's terrifying.
And it's the emotions that all get tied up into that fuels the horror. And so it feeds off of itself in a way that is actually fucking interesting.
Yeah. Because there's nothing scary about, you bought a haunted house in suburban America and you're middle class.
It's not scary.
Upper middle class.
The rich white people have nothing to worry about. It doesn't make any sense to
In the words
make
of
horror
Ben
movies.
Shapiro, if your house is underwater, just sell it and move.
Yeah, so it's just like strong thematic stuff with the characters. I guess we should get into like what the fuck actually happens, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty fucking
enjoyable.
sick.
Okay, so like maybe a third of the way through the movie, you're introduced to like what the ghost is.
Yes.
Because like initially, like the couple moves into this house, the guy is seeing shit and ghosts and stuff, and he's kind of wigging out. And then the woman sees the ghost, and she seems to immediately know what it is because she tells this story of a legend of a man who stole to get by, and he ended up stealing from a witch who put a curse on him.
Yeah.
And then and that's what this curse is, you know?
Yeah, so the story was the witch ended up living in the house that he built and then eventually killed him to reclaim what he had taken.
Yeah, so the implication is that the man must have done something wrong. We don't know what it is.
Someone did something.
Yeah, but we know he's been up to some shit. And up until this point, he's been portrayed as like a really good guy.
Yeah, he's like
you know?
a really good.
Like, he's really
Wholesome.
compassionate. He's trying to make this work. They're in a
Yeah.
new country. He is really trying to make it work.
He's trying to integrate to
Yeah.
the absolute best of his ability.
And then the wife is very much like, she hates what they're going through. She wants to go back. You
Yeah.
know? She doesn't like this. And so from that point onward, we're given these perspectives of like, the guy is stubbornly trying to stay. He's trying to make it work, and he's trying to ignore the ghosts that are going on, or solve it or fix it. He's like ripping apart the walls to try to find the ghosts of the walls and
Because
stuff.
he keeps hearing things in the walls.
Yeah. While the
whispers and scratching.
while the wife starts communicating with the spirits and the ghosts, and she is determined, like, you need to repent for what you did, and we need to go back to where we are, and if we go back, we'll get our daughter back.
Because it's heavily implied that their daughter, they lost their daughter during a, like, boat portion of traveling
Yeah.
to the UK from Sudan. Their boat, like, capsized, or something happened. They lost their daughter, and presumably she drowned.
Yeah. And so it turns into that for a little while. There's some great scenes of, like, them leaving the house, interacting with people in the UK who are racist as fuck, and they live in, like,
Yeah.
the ghetto, you know, and it's like,
Yeah.
they're in this shit situation, and it does a great job of showing, like, how foreign they are to it. There's a great scene where the husband comes home after, and the wife had gone out during the day, and had this scene where she walked around like a labyrinth, and then she met, like, she tried to approach these other, like, black kids who are playing, and she's like, oh, they look like me, they're gonna help me,
Right.
you know, and they basically just shit all over her, tell her to go back to where she came from because she has this thick accent that they're making fun of. And that was an interesting scene. And then the husband comes home, and she has set out a dinner on the floor, and there's like a carpet on the ground, and she's got all these bowls that have like neatly chopped hamburgers and stuff, and she's eating with her hands because, like, that's the culture they
That's
came
their
from.
culture, right.
That's normal for them. And he comes in, he's like, you need to use a fork, and he's like, this is, you know, we need
This
to get
is
used
how
to
things
this.
are going to be done now.
And at every step, they're trying to show she is grounded in tradition. Best representation of this is that she has scarification on her face.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is meant to represent she cannot let go of her culture. It is part of her. It's on her. And she wears it. Like, this is who she is.
Yeah, and she doesn't want to relinquish it either.
She doesn't want to relinquish it. She's proud of it. She cannot hide it. It's literally on her
It's right
face.
there on her temple, yeah.
Like, he can put on a shirt and look like a regular guy. She can't do that. This is an inherent part of her character. And so they're just, like, opposing forces, you know? And so the point of the movie in the end, like, the metaphor of the witch is, like, he's their regret, their
It's like survivor's
anxiety,
guilt.
their survivor's guilt, and, like, the ghost is very clearly a metaphor, and very strongly reinforced by the fact that they kill it in the end.
Yeah, the way they kill the witch. So there's
Yeah,
there's the
they kill
witch,
the witch.
and then there's, like, the ghost of their daughter and the ghost of, like, refugees that you can presume drowned when the boat capsized.
And, like,
and they're all occupying this house.
Yeah, over the course of the movie, like, the husband is being haunted by the drowned ghosts, and those are the ones that keep coming back to him because he regrets leaving those people behind.
He feels like he didn't try hard enough to save them.
Towards the end, we're finally given the backstory that they're reliving kind of through visions, and it turns out that when they were fleeing, the husband and wife were trying to get onto a bus to escape, and they wouldn't let them on because they didn't have a kid with them.
Well,
And
they said
were
the bus was full.
Yeah, it was at capacity, but then they were like, oh, we're trying to get women and children or whatever. And so he just grabs some kid.
He grabs a child from in the crowd.
Yeah, he grabs a random child and is like, this is our daughter. And then they finally let him on the bus because they need to get the fuck out of there because there's literally, like, gunshots going
There
off.
is shit going down right now.
There's people driving by, like, it's clear that they will die if they don't get on this bus.
Yeah.
And so he grabs this kid so they can get on the bus and they get out of there. And then the kid's mom is running after the bus, screaming, my daughter, my daughter, my daughter. But the bus is not going to stop at this point.
Yeah, the bus can't stop.
It's done. Everyone on the bus seems like they know that they stole this kid.
Everyone
you know?
is giving them, because the daughter is also screaming for her
yeah,
mom.
exactly.
So it's like, clearly this isn't your kid. Everyone's kind of giving them the look, but there's nothing they can do now. It's too late.
So going forward, the wife is now like, I have to protect this girl because she's now our daughter.
This
like,
is
we
our
have to
daughter
treat her
now.
like we stole her. Her life is in our hands. She's our daughter. And so when they're traveling, she gets knocked off of the boat. The husband saves the wife and leaves the daughter to die in the water.
Yeah.
Because he can only take one of them. And it's like, you see where this, like, it was his fault that he took her in the first place. It wasn't his fault that she died, you know?
Yeah.
And so the ghosts haunting him are his regret over what he did. Like that's just what it is. It's a simple movie. Like it's not that complicated.
Oh, it's not like
you get this watching it. Like you'd have to be kind of retarded, like all these reviews we were reading, to not understand this. It's very clear watching the movie.
You'd have to prefer Hoobie Halloween.
Yeah, you have to prefer Hoobie Halloween. But like, yeah, that's the point of the movie, that he's filled with the regret over what he did to survive, to get them to this new country, and he's just trying to push it down and ignore it, and like he won't let the wife talk about it. He'll cover her mouth so she doesn't say daughter, and he is just running from it, and he's like, we need to leave the past behind, we need to integrate into this new place so that we can survive. And the wife is like, she's overcome with her mourning for her country because she loves where she's from. She misses the daughter that they took, and she feels bad about that. It's just all of her emotions coming together, and she is given like this scene where she goes into like a fucking alternate space where she's with all of her, like all the women of her community, and they show her the visions of what happened and everything, and it's like, you know, she's seeking this comfort of her people that they're dead,
of her,
they're
of
gone.
her culture and her people, because she's stuck in this completely foreign country.
It's just beautiful. It's fucking awesome.
It's really, because at that point, you know, she's hanging out with these people who she loves and who she misses, and she's reliving all this trauma that she's just been through.
Yeah.
And they cut away to like the husband coming to find her, and as she like crawls out of this cupboard that she's been hiding in, the camera moves from looking at her and pans around, and all the women that she had been surrounded with are all dead on the ground. Like they've clearly all been shot, and she had hidden in the cupboard to stay alive.
And that's part of her regret.
And that compounds with her survivor's guilt on with the boat, the daughter, everything else.
Yeah, she feels like she
probably feels like she shouldn't have lived. Yeah.
And why she wants to kind of go back, because she doesn't feel good being alive.
And this is not. This isn't her home. She should have died with her people in her home.
And so at the finale of the movie, they've been through these visions, and the husband is getting fucking devoured by the monster, because she comes out of her visions, and the husband has cut out of his arm his
because
flesh.
They set this up, she and the husband both have separate conversations with the witch, and she has this conversation first where she tells him, like, you need to make up for what you've done. If you sacrifice yourself, we can, this witch will give us our daughter back.
Yeah.
And at first he's like, no, he absolutely won't do it. And then he also, later in the movie, has a conversation with the witch, and the witch reiterates the same thing, where you need to make up for what you've done, and if you do, I'll give you back your daughter. And at the very end of the movie, it's like he's totally lost it. He's gotten to the point where, like, he's trying to trap his wife inside the house so she cannot leave.
Yeah.
Because she's reached a breaking point where she just wants to go home. She doesn't give a fuck how it happens. Yeah. She just needs to get out of here. And so he's literally trapped her in the house, and they've reached this breaking point to where you can see they're in the kitchen sitting together after he's trapped her in the house, and she's eyeing the butcher knife, thinking, well, if I kill him, then I can get my daughter back and we can go home. But before she has the chance to do it, he takes the knife and he instead cuts himself, knowing that this will summon the witch. Because up until this point, the witch isn't able to touch him or hurt him. Yeah. So at this point, it's like he's given the witch permission to take back, this revenge.
Let it in.
And really, like, give the witch this catharsis of taking what, the debt that he's owed.
Yeah.
And the wife is, like, letting this happen, and she leaves the room as the witch is, like, literally, like, crawling into the body of her husband.
Super cool
like,
effect.
He has this cut that he's made on his arm, and the witch, like, shoves his hand in there, and he's, like, moving it around, like, man, you see it under the skin.
It's gruesome.
The witch in this movie, by the way, is fucking sick.
Yeah,
this monster design is so good, and you can tell that it's, like, at least partially practical effects.
Yeah.
Like,
and
there's a guy in a suit. But even when they don't show you the witch, like in the scene where Bull is communicating with the witch, and it's just the candle sitting in the room between them, and the witch is in the darkness, and you just see these piercing eyes like moving around in the darkness, and it's so creepy. I love that this movie has that setting where it wants you to peer into the darkness and struggle to see what it is that's like lurking on the other side. I love that. That's so good.
Get into the cinematography, but at the end of the movie, the wife ends up killing the witch. She slits its throat.
Well, the witch does, like, release a vision of the daughter to the wife.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, Rial realizes, like, she's dead. There's nothing I can do to bring her back.
It's
and
not,
so
it's fake. It's not reality.
Exactly. So she comes back to Bull and she kills the witch.
Yeah. And I think it's also her coming to terms with, like, appreciating what he did for her as well. Because he did this all to save her, you know?
Right.
But yeah, so she kills the witch, which is, you know, them letting go of their trauma. And then there's just a fucking beautiful scene. The final scene, because they've been getting checked on by, like, the British...
like immigration
authorities or whatever. I don't know what they're called. But, like, they've been checking in with them throughout the movie. And, like, there's this constant fear that they're going to get sent back. Deported because they're not integrating well, even though the husband is trying so fucking hard.
He's trying, but he's also, like, hammering holes in the walls while he's hunting for ghosts. And he's showing up with, like, blood covered on his shirt, like, looking disheveled as fuck.
And the wife tells him, like, oh, there's a witch and he's tormenting my husband and he's going insane. And then,
and then there's, like... Okay.
But, like, they come in at the end and they've re-plastered the walls and everything. Like, they're trying to fix. You see that they're trying to integrate, and then the people leave, and there's these beautiful shots of them standing, and all of the dead people are around them in their like, regular bodies. Like, their ghosts are all there.
Well, like, even when they're talking to the immigration workers, Bull says something to the effect of, like...
they're always with us.
Yeah, these ghosts are always with us, and implying that, you know, he's come to terms with these sacrifices that he's made and that the people around him have made for him to be here.
Yeah.
And that it would be wasteful to give up this opportunity, and that you need to keep struggling even though maybe you've hurt people and people have died and you've been through so much, but you need to take advantage of what's been given to you and try.
It's about, like, not forgetting about the people that were sacrificed along the way. You have to live with them and appreciate it every day. And, like, they are there around them. And it just gives me... Like, I'm getting chills now. But, like, I seriously got fucking chills during that scene. It was amazing. It's beautiful.
Because now all these people, they're no longer portrayed as, like, these disgusting waterlogged ghosts. It's like, they look like humans. And they're all just, like, peacefully sitting in the house together with these two.
Yes. Like, and that is just, like, no ghost movie has ever ended like that, where they came to terms with the ghosts and what they were and what they represented. Like, they moved on and they accepted it, and the ghosts aren't tormenting them anymore because they moved on, you know?
Right.
Because the ghosts are a goddamn metaphor and they're not literally there. Get it in your heads, people. That's how you make a good movie. But yeah, very fucking awesome. But yeah, from a cinematography standpoint, the movie is fucking gorgeous. Perfect execution of horror in terms of, like, there's lots of mechanics built into the scenes of, like, the faulty work with the lights, and lights are cutting out all the time, and there's mechanics of, like, he turns the light on and the ghost disappears, and it just, like, has all these awesome scenes incorporating light in creative ways.
And incorporating the house. Like, the house is a character in itself.
Exactly. Like, the different rooms and where he is. It's all has incredible spatial awareness. The color scheme and the lighting is fucking amazing.
Really, really
it's
beautiful.
my favorite aesthetic of a movie.
This is the most Victor aesthetic movie I've ever seen.
Because it's the contrasting color scheme is red and green. And, like, if you guys don't know, with cinematography in general, you use contrasting colors to enhance certain stuff. And I can really get into it with, like, skin tones and why that matters and how it can allow for this kind of color scheme. Because usually, like, you go for teal and orange because, like, skin is typically of an orange tint if you are of a certain constitution. And so you go for a sort of teal and orange look because the skin is always going to have that sort of complement to it, and then the contrast of that would be the teal, or the complement of that will be the teal. So you usually go for contrasting colors to make things pop. And so another contrasting color you could do is green and red, which is very rare and can only work in so many applications because it's spooky, you know?
Yeah.
But in a horror movie, it's great. And I use this color scheme a lot because I am inspired by nighttime and the look of night. And I think the best way to execute the look of night is with, like, red and green stoplights. And so that's kind of the color scheme this goes for, where it has green walls and red light coming in through the windows, which makes sense given the context of where they are, because they're in, like, if you're in an urban environment, especially like if you're trying to portray low income, there should be light pouring in through the windows from street lights and stuff like that, because like you don't have the ability to block all that out.
Yeah, there's no fucking light blocking
Yeah.
curtains up in this bitch.
And it allows for these awesome scenes because you have these dark nighttime scenes where there's just like this red or amber light pouring in through the windows, where it's like, even though there's no electricity in the house, like there's a diegetic light source that makes sense.
Yeah.
It looks awesome. It just goes into this beautiful nighttime aesthetic territory that I fucking love. And then it goes, and when it's in the daytime scenes, it goes back to teal and orange. Like, it goes back to blue. He wears a blue jacket, and he goes around. He's also interacting with white people, so it's a little hard. But,
If this movie...
It's like, if I could really get into cinematography history, like for a movie to be able to look like this and to have a starring black cast in a red and green aesthetic, it's like, this is modern technology. Like, you know, the history of skin tones in cinema, where they couldn't even accurately render dark skin tones until a furniture company commissioned the film to be made to make their furniture look good. Like, the fact that we've got to this point where the cinematography could be so goddamn beautiful and work with these skin tones is beautiful, and I love it, and it just looks so good, and it's inspiring to me. It's my favorite kind of aesthetic. It just looks like it came out of my fucking imagination.
Yeah, this feels like the pinnacle of something like you and one of the directors that you frequently enjoyed working with.
Yeah, so the visuals, I mean, I had a massive erection the entire time for the cinematography, in exact contrast to the previous movie we discussed.
Yes, and like I was discussing earlier with the elements that really play into the horror, this movie really reminded me of one of my other favorite horror movies, It Comes at Night. Because It Comes at Night does the same sort of thing where it really plays with like the depth of darkness and making you peer into the unknown and the darkness and the black, and you're just sitting there like, oh God, what could be in there, like looking back at me. Except this movie actually has like opposite theming. Yeah. Because it Comes at Night, if you've ever seen it, it's very, very hopeless, a lot of despair. At the end, the characters are just hollow husks. You know, they have nothing left in this world, and there is no ray of hope for them. They're fucked. But this movie, you know, you come to the end, and these characters have been through this harrowing journey and gone through all this, and they've worked through it, and now like they're at this precipice of being able to start a new life, and there's so much hope at the end of this movie that it's something really unusual.
It's a very positive horror movie, you know. It just plays into the messaging of it, which is really strong. Yeah. I wanted to say, in terms of like the cinematography with the darkness and stuff, very fucking awesome. It does a great job of kind of like there's some jump scares, which bother me a little bit, but they're executed way better than your average fucking like Blumhouse film. Oh. And then they do a good job of sort of like setting an expectation with jump scares, but then juxtaposing that with like a long non-jump scare, you know? And then the more we get the ghosts, like they start to really interact with them and like really show them for a long duration of time without it losing its impact. Where like he does get those scenes where the scene where he's turning the light on and off in the room is just so good. And it's like he is fighting the ghosts. Like he's not running away. He's standing his ground and he's trying to get them out. And like it's just so interesting. And it's got fantastic blocking throughout the movie. There's very little boring scenes of people just kind of doing nothing. Yeah. I would even argue that the jump scares at the beginning of the movie kind of thematically fit. Yeah. Because initially when you're experiencing those jump scares in the first like third of the movie, it's because the main characters are also surprised to be seeing these things here. And then as the movie moves on, it moves away from jump scares and it moves into those long drawn out, like quiet conversation. Like he has a quiet conversation with the witch. He's, like you said, flipping the lights on and off, like trying to hunt down these ghosts and get them out. But you're not getting those jump scares anymore because the characters know that this witch and these ghosts are here. They're not surprising them. And there's lots of whispering. Yes. Like the ghosts speak a lot. And sometimes the characters know and sometimes they don't know. And it's just not acknowledged. And you hear it and they don't. And it's very fun in that way. Gosh, it's fucking dope. And I was just so excited the entire time. I had to like stop the movie and pee several times and every time I was like, I can't believe there's still so much more of this movie to watch. Like, I really was enjoying it.
It's so
It just came out of nowhere. It was so good to me.
I can't believe that. I mean, it's really just a shame that this movie, like, it's out on Netflix. I haven't really heard anyone talk about it. I've seen like a couple people on Twitter tweet about it. But it's so good. And then like having watched this movie right after having watched Possessor. Yeah. It's like, it's just such a dichotomy and such a juxtaposition for like what horror and like vision and aesthetic can do for conveying a theme when a movie really has something to say. And character, you know? It's just a Possessor had no character to it. It had no lovable, likable characters in any way. Yeah. You didn't give a fuck about what happened to anyone. This is a movie where it's just like it hooks you really fast with these characters. If you're not an asshole. I mean, there's like people in some of the reviews we read, they're like blatantly racist or think it's like virtue signaling. And it's like, what? Propaganda. God forbid a movie have something to say. Something to say at all. If you think it's propaganda, you're probably guilty and lying to yourself about some shit and you need to get the fuck out. But I'm all for movies that have a fucking message and a point and not just retreading the same shit that we've already seen a million times in a new fucking package, you know? Yeah. And I mean, like, there's something to be said for the complexity, especially of Bull in this movie, to where you see that he is a good person and that he wants to do well and he wants to protect the people he cares about. But he had this moment of weakness in a time of like extreme crisis where, that was fucked up to steal someone's kid. But like, would you really do any better if you were in the same situation? Exactly. That doesn't make you an evil person. It just means that you were in a crisis and you made a bad snap decision. But we all do that. It was life and death and it wasn't something petty, you know? No. It was harsh. That doesn't mean that this character deserves to die at the end of the film. Like I've read reviews where people felt like justice wasn't served in this movie and that's why they don't like it. And it's like, that's not the point. The point is these are good people who have made bad decisions, but everyone's done that. Yeah. Exactly. And they're just trying to fucking cope and integrate into society and live, you know? They're trapped. They have no choice. Yeah, exactly. Like there's nothing for them to go back to if they were kicked out. Yeah, they're just fucked. The only thing waiting for them is death if they leave. It's like they don't want to be there. They don't want to be in the fucking UK dealing with all these racist douchebags. Like they're trapped. They have no choice. Exactly, and like it's so fucking relevant and so poignant right now. Even living here in the US, when I hear people talk about immigration, it's like stop and think about what you're saying. Like what would possess someone to leave their country with no safety net, not knowing the language, having no connections, no prospects, knowing that you could get detained at the border or worse, you could be killed on the way there. Think about how bad your situation must be to prompt you to do something like that. So rather than looking at these people as like a fucking monster or the enemy, like stop and think about how desperate would you have to be to do that? Really? Yeah. How fucking desperate would you need to be to take that kind of risk? We're so comfortable like here, you know, in our lives in America and presumably for a lot of people in a lot of the other first world countries like the UK that like it's easy to forget, but you have to like try and stop. And like that's why a movie like this is important because it puts perspective on that when it's easy to forget. You know, you get wrapped up in fucking Orange Man being, you know, starting all this shit with the election and all that. And it's easy to forget that like these are people, you know? And then they also have like the attitude of the authorities where they're like, oh, you got the nice house, you know? Right. It's like this shit. My apartment isn't even this big. And it's like, it's a piece of shit, dude. It's the entitlement of like, you should be grateful for what you have, even though we're making everything difficult for you. And you've gone through intense trauma to get here and your life is in ruins, but you have to play by all of these rules and we're not going to help you fucking at all, you know? Yeah. And Rial has a really good bit of dialogue addressing that where she's talking to Bull and she mentions she's like, you idolize these people, you fought so hard to come to this country, they give you fucking scraps and you're crawling all over yourself to ingratiate yourself to them when they've given you really nothing.
And they don't want you here.
And they don't,
you know?
and they despise
They're tolerating
you.
your existence.
So why are you making such an effort to erase your identity and blend in with theirs?
But because there's nothing for them to go back to, you know, they have no choice. So
it's such a nuanced situation. I just really, I love this portrayal of it so much.
Yeah. And they cover both bases with her just being like, fuck this, dude. Like, why are we fucking bending over backwards to please these people? And he's just like, what are we gonna fucking do?
Yeah, well, what else can we do? And it's like you totally understand both sides. Yeah. It's so good and so nuanced.
Don't want to go on about it too forever long. But definitely recommend. Great movie. Even now that you've heard us talk about it, if you haven't seen it, still go watch it.
It doesn't matter. It's still an excellent watch.
I think it's an instant classic for me. I'm going to be trying to push it on people forever. And not everyone's going to get it, as we see from user reviews. But
and hey, if you don't like his house, you can always watch Hoobie Halloween.
Yeah, go watch Hoobie Halloween. Anywho, Vic and Hope. Forever.
The only Vic and Hope on the internet.
The only Vic and Hope on the internet. Confirmed.
Bye.